And I think that's another area where, as women, we were told for a long time, like, be quiet, sit in the back, let other people share.
Mm-hmm.
Don't speak up, don't be loud, don't take up too much space, don't take up too much room. Like, you are the complement to everyone else in the room, not the reason people are in the room. And don't agree with that. I think you're allowed to be loud, and you're allowed to be you, and you're allowed to love things and, profess it from the mountaintops. Why not?
Mm.
Right? Because when you look at the people who are making waves in the world, it's the people who have passion
Yep.
around what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm a passionate person. So instead of being too much, I'm just enough.
You're listening to the Behind the Village podcast. My guest today is Risha Yorke from Yorke Motivational Consulting.
I worked in various organizations as an organizational development coach or an in-role sales and management coach or something along those lines. But I found I could have more of an impact if I was a gun for hire, because I'm an outsider. So I can come in with no skin in the game. I'm not trying to get you to drink the company Kool-Aid. I'm not trying to get you on board with whatever it is the company has as goals. What I'm trying to do is make sure that every single person in the room has a goal, is motivated, understands their motivations, knows where they're going, wants to be here. And if not, has at least enough self-reflective moments to be like, oh, I think I'm in the wrong job. Great. See ya. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And put the
Interesting.
power in the employee's hands.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very interesting way of looking at it, because I think most people, when they look at corporate or when they look at business in general, it's always from the perspective of how do I, or like everything is geared towards the company, right? HR
Yeah.
or whatever. It's always like to protect the company or to protect the how to make more money or how to get more shareholders, and stuff like that. So to be able to kind of have something that feels very much like from an employee's perspective, right? Or from I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it has a huge impact on the culture of an organization when you put employees first.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, there's examples. There's that guy who said, okay, I'm not going to pay myself millions of dollars a year anymore. I'm going to make sure everybody in my company, he's in Seattle, I think, makes at least $70,000 a year. Every single person, from the person in the mailroom to the people who are in senior leadership, everyone makes a minimum of $70,000 a year. That's a living wage. I want to make sure nobody's worried. They're thriving.
Yeah.
Right? So when we really start to think about how can we repurpose our goals as also personal goals for employees, make this mean something to them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
Right? Make them have skin in the game.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me a little bit about the things that you usually deal with in your business, basically, like the types of things that you help people with, or just tell me a little more about your business, I guess.
Yeah, so I like to use temperament theory a lot. We talk a lot about how, everybody is a different personality type, but also everyone is their own unique plaid of personality, I guess, traits, right? And so what helps us understand that is that every human being has their own strengths and their own weaknesses. So I work a lot in that space to help people discover their strengths and understand what their challenges are, where they need to work harder or focus harder. And again, making those impossible things not impossible, just hard, right? And focusing on the thing that, like, yeah, that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard for you because it doesn't come naturally to you. And that's okay.
Right.
We can do hard things. You might not want to live in the doing hard things space. Like, that's going to be really draining. And I talk to people about, that internal right? Which I think is comprised of motivation and self-esteem and energy and all of these things. And so a lot of self-discovery in the work I do that allows people to understand themselves, their reactions, and their inclinations better so that they can also honor that, right? Honor that in the work they do and honor that in the communication they have with other people. And it makes things go a lot more smoothly. And then I also, in the same vein, train people to communicate within and with other temperaments. So we all have our natural communication style. Some people are short and curt and they just say what needs to be said. Someone more like me is a storyteller. I'm going to go deep and wide, and I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Some people don't have the patience for any of it, and they need to see it in writing.
Yep.
Right? And so I train people on communication skills for both business and personal so that they can understand, like, oh, I'm probably speaking to someone who is a polar opposite temperament than me, and they're not hearing me. I am being misunderstood. How can I learn to speak in a way that can be understood and seen by people that usually don't understand or see me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of that. And then similarly, I train on a lot of management style stuff because, as we know, most managers are in their management jobs because they were great at their job, not because they're great managers.
Yeah. 100%.
And very rarely do we train people to be managers. Like, once they're in the role, we just sort of expect them, like, okay, go manage people, right? But we give them no interpersonal training, none. And that doesn't really feel fair. Like, you wouldn't throw someone into an engineering job with no training on what the process is.
That's true.
So why do we throw human beings into people management training without training them on human beings? We don't. Like, we shouldn't, and we do all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I remember the first management job that I took because I worked in corporate marketing for a while, and I ended up being a manager for this company, and it was a very interesting way because as similar to what you said, I've always done, like, I started by being part of their marketing. Like, I was doing their pamphlets, I was doing their social media, I was doing their, all these kinds of things, right, when I was just starting up. And then they, when I was bumped into management, all of a sudden I realized that I was doing none of those things. I was telling people what to do, but I was doing none of those things that I consider myself to be fairly good at in that sense, right?
Yeah.
What I ended up doing was instead just managing, like you said, managing people, right? And that's a whole different skill set that I didn't know that I needed to learn. That is like, oh, all of a sudden I have to deal with, okay, these people don't like each other, or these people don't work well together. Okay, so what do I do about this, right? Okay.
Yeah, like, were you taught conflict resolution?
Nope.
Were you taught problem solving?
Nope.
Were you taught creative thinking and thinking outside the box?
Not really, but I hope that I had that with the industry that I was, in.
Right?
But yeah.
It's tough. And these are skills that you need, and communication skills,
Yeah.
and presenting skills, and storytelling skills. And, like, all of these things are the things that we need as leaders to get people on our side. Like, without people following you, you're not a leader. So how do you get people to follow? Well, you got to have a good story, and you have to have a vision, and you have to have the skills to properly and effectively communicate that story and that vision.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, who are you leading?
Yeah. 100%. And I think a lot of it comes down to, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you deal with this as well, but a lot of it has to come down with confidence, right? With when not only just you need to figure out what kind of story you're trying to tell people, right? And stuff like that, but confidence in that you know what you're doing. I think there's a lot of I forget what it's called. It's slipping my mind now, but I feel like a lot of people, imposter syndrome, that's what it is. A lot of people feel like they have that idea of imposter syndrome. Is like, am I good enough? Can I actually do this? Or am I in the right role? Like, I'm not sure if I landed here. or if I
Yeah,
can
and
do
I
it,
feel
right?
like the idea of imposter syndrome, it actually makes me upset because I feel like imposter syndrome is literally just a way to say I'm not confident in who I am,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And instead of saying you have imposter syndrome, I feel like I want to say, I think you have some self-discovery work to do. If you feel pretty confident in who you are as a person and what your strengths are, then you feel pretty confident trying something new and saying, this might not be an area that I am strong in, but I'm willing to give it a try, right? But you know that it might land outside of your strengths area. You wouldn't feel like an imposter. You would know these are my skill sets. Maybe this one doesn't land within it. This is an opportunity for me to learn something new. You would give yourself more grace,
Mm.
knowing that this isn't something that comes naturally to you. That being said, there's tons of people who are so great at what they do and they have strengths in these areas, but they're unaware of their strengths. And so they sit there being like, am I good at this? I feel like people say I'm good at it, but I feel like my job is so hard, but it also comes like, is it too easy? And I've talked to people about this where they're like, I'm just doing what I do and everyone says I'm great, but I feel like, oh my God, they have no idea. Right?
Yeah.
And people tend to qualify that as imposter syndrome. And what I'm saying is you have no idea what your strengths are.
Yeah.
Things are going to come really easily to you that don't come really easily to other people.
Hmm.
And when we compare ourselves to other people, this is where we start to have self-confidence issues. And that comparing yourself to someone else, it's the kiss of death, like for you and for them. Because you're not the same people and you probably aren't the same temperament and you probably don't have the same skills or the same background or the same upbringing or the same, like everything informs you all the way along the way,
Yeah. Yeah. I tell this a
right?
lot to business owners as well, because it's a very common thing, right? To be comparing yourself to other businesses, right? It's the exact same idea, but you're not. Like, even if you sell the same things, you're not the same people. You're not, you're not in the same place. You don't attract the same audience, right? Even though they may want the same thing, it's not the same. People are going to be attracted to you and how you
Yeah.
solve problems and how you say things and all
Like
these stuff.
Dove sells soap and, you know, oh, what is it? Old Spice
Oh, Old
sells
Spice,
soap.
yeah.
It's probably the same soap, folks. Like truly, right? But
Hmm.
they're not the same clientele. You have to understand who you are before you can understand who your audience is.
Yeah.
And that's where the self-confidence comes from. So you're right. There's this like element of self-confidence that comes into play if you're going to be a leader or if you're going to run a business. You have to have a good idea of who you are. It makes all the difference.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But how do you make the difference? Because I think I've talked about this with other people, right? I've talked about self-confidence or being confident, right, with other people. And I've heard some people say that, they don't want to appear like they are being arrogant or that appear that they are being, uh, you know, egocentric or something like that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm fine with saying that I'm good at something, but I don't want to sound like I'm like, trying to sell you that I'm the freaking best at in the whole world, right? Like,
So
what's
I
the
think
what's
this comes
the
down to like two things. Nobody's the best in the whole world at anything,
Mhm.
period. End of conversation. Someone's always going to eclipse you. If you won the gold medal for sprinting, guess what? Next year, it's not you, is it?
Yeah.
Right? You can't hold on to that title forever. You
Hmm.
can be excellent at something. And why isn't that enough? Why can't you just be excellent at something? You don't have to be the best. You have to be excellent at it. And there's no reason why you cannot have pride in it, right? But I think this comes from two sides. I will say, from my perspective, women are often told, like, you are not allowed to have confidence. And I have experienced it in a corporate space where when I come to the table with confidence, I'm intense or I'm too much. They can't really handle it. But then the men who come in and do the exact same thing I do, they're like, wow, what a leader. Love that guy. He's so great, right? And so my conversation always was, okay, if I'm emulating the leaders in this organization and I'm coming to the table and showing the same confidence that they're showing, but I'm not allowed and he is, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So there's certainly a conversation to be had around gender here. And I think it's women, the tide is changing. Women are starting to realize like, oh, I'm allowed to step into my awesomeness, into my excellence, and be proud of being awesome and excellent. I'm allowed to do that.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's so hard to change the narrative around that. Because forever we have been saying the opposite. Now, for men, I feel like in a leadership role, we are often encouraging them to say they are great at what they're doing. The difference is that self-discovery piece. So if you say you're great at something, but you haven't done that self-discovery piece, you may be deluding yourself.
Right.
Because men are encouraged to be confident without the information to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like fake it till you make it. That's what's being encouraged. But if you don't come to the table with the skills behind the excellence, then it's empty.
Yeah. So how do you, I guess, figure out, and I guess you can talk me a little bit about through your thought process, how do you discover yourself? Like if you want to, let's say I'm someone that is struggling with self-confidence, right? Because I'm going to be starting this business, or I'm in a role, right? Or I'm in management, or I'm in something, and I'm struggling with self-confidence, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I improve? How do I get better? How do I feel like I can bring myself into the table? How would I discover myself?
So, I mean, I might be a little biased, but I think therapy is an excellent resource. And the reason I say this is twofold. I was raised by a therapist. So I feel like I started in this world with these tools that not everybody seems to have. And, as a young person was very confused. Like, you don't know this about yourself, right? But I was raised by a therapist, right? So I feel like I got this head start in all of these tools and self-discovery things that most people hadn't taken the time to do because it hadn't been modeled for them.
Yeah.
And in therapy, there's a lot of conversations around, personal values and motivations and goals and the things that come naturally to you, and strength finding. And so if you want to start that journey, therapy is not a bad place to start.
Mm-hmm.
If you are in a rush to get through that journey, that's actually what motivated me to build. I have a 12-week confidence and leadership program I run online. It's called Lead Without Permission. And in that, I take everything I learned over a decade of trying to synthesize the steps to self-confidence and leadership. And I teach it over 12 weeks. So it's like a deep dive into self-discovery, and I use assessments, and then we talk about communication and self-care and the kind of groups you're a part of and the people you surround yourself with, and leadership styles and goals and goal setting and all of this, right? Visualization and manifestation. We get a little bit woo-woo because sometimes you gotta, right? Think outside the box.
Yeah.
Right? But that's another option. And if you're someone who wants to do this all by yourself because you're like, I don't know, like then you need to connect with yourself in a very important way and think about all of the things that are most important to you. And it literally is about prioritizing, right? Like, what are the values that you can't budge on? What are the things that are so important to you, there's no way you would cross that line? Right? And so when you get really, really real with yourself around those things and you define them for yourself, not just like, oh yeah, I'm a good person. Maybe you go to church. Maybe you're not a church person, but you have very strong ethics. Okay, cool. But if you haven't defined them, put them in writing, see them every day, use them as your lighthouse, then they're not there for you in the way that they could be.
100%. There's something that I usually tell people, that if you can't tell other people, right, why you're good at, or, how you think, or if you can't describe it to other people, then
Mhm.
you don't know the subject well enough yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
It's time to go back to the drawing board. And I think the sad part is this should be a thing we're teaching in schools.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because it is integral to self-development,
Mm-hmm.
understanding who you are and your core beliefs, your core values, they don't really change that much over time. Not the top 3 or 4, not really.
And it's something that I think most people battle with, is that confidence, right? Confidence to be able
100%.
to pursue something, confidence to be able to go for something, or to manage life the way that they want to be. I think a lot of people feel, for all intents and purposes, stuck with
Yeah.
the life that it's almost like life is leading them, right? In that regard. Well, all of a sudden I am here and I don't have the confidence to move somewhere else, or to do something, or to
Yeah.
try what I've always wanted to try.
And that's
So,
the difference between being an observer in your life and being a conductor.
mm,
I think we all feel limitations sometimes where we're like, "Oh, that would be hard." Right, but if it really meant a lot to you, you do it.
yeah,
Like, at the end of the day, right? Like, I think about this a lot because I'm like, when I look at my personal values, they guide my decision making. So there's things I'd like to do. There's things that would be fun and I would participate in, but they don't make my top 3. So instead of feeling bad about being like, I haven't done that and it's something I'd like to do, you look at your values and you go, actually, I haven't done that and it'd be nice to do. And if the opportunity comes up, great. But it's not in my top 3 values. It's not that important to me. So I have prioritized those top 3 things instead. And I can feel good about that.
yeah,
And then it eliminates that like fear of missing out too.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, like how your values influence in your decision making? Because I feel like a lot of people don't see it that way, right? But how
No.
important it is to understand your values, and how much it affects your decisions, and or what you choose to do.
Yeah, it literally affects every single decision I make every single day of my life.
Mm,
Like, without a doubt. So my top values are integrity, inclusivity, passion, and work-life balance.
interesting.
I live my life by those 4 values. And I will be honest, the work-life balance one, it's an aspirational goal
Right.
for me. I came from a place of working 80 plus hours a week and was like, I I can't keep going like this. So when I readjusted my priorities and refocused on my values, it became very clear to me that when I look at my life, my friends and my family are absolutely way more important to me than any job or money or anything. If I lost everything, I would be okay if it was me, my husband, my kids, and my friends in a tiny little 1-bedroom apartment. I would be okay.
Hmm.
So if that's the case, then I need to make sure that my time is being allocated properly, that in a way that honors that. And because that's what I believe, my integrity drives that. I need to stay true to who I am. I want to be honest and transparent. I don't ever want to feel like I'm putting people on, misleading them, lying to them, manipulating them. Never, ever. And I would also say, you know, we are taught, certainly those of us, I don't know who's listening, but like I grew up in the 80s. And in the 80s, it was like eat or be eaten, right? Like that was the
Right.
vibe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it was very like dog eat dog. You step on whoever you need to step on to get to where you need to go, especially for women. Like women were now a major part of the workforce. And it's like we had to prove that we deserve to be there. And that's crap. Let's be honest, right? If
Yeah.
we treat other people that way, then that just comes right back to us. But whether you believe in karma or not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So integrity for me is huge. I want to do everything I do with an honest heart, with gratitude and transparency and with good intentions. And then inclusivity is important to me because no one wants to feel left out. No one. So I want to make sure that as I move through this world, I'm taking people who feel like they're being shoved out to the margins and I'm saying, no, 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 you need to come back in. We
Mm.
need everyone at the table. We need everyone at the table. Everyone's
Absolutely.
voice, everyone's opinion, it all needs to be heard. So I want to make sure we're not alienating people, we're bringing people into the fold, right?
Yeah.
And then passion, I mean, I think you can tell. I'm a pretty passionate person. Get very excited about things and I want to be able to express that honestly. And I think that's another area where as women, we were told for a long time, like, be quiet, sit in the back, let other people share.
Mm-hmm.
Don't speak up, don't be loud, don't take up too much space, don't take up too much room. Like, you are the complement to everyone else in the room, not the reason people are in the room. And don't agree with that. I think you're allowed to be loud and you're allowed to be you and you're allowed to love things and, profess it from the mountaintops. Why not?
Mm.
Right? Because when you look at the people who are making waves in the world, it's the people who have passion
Yep.
around what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm a passionate person. So instead of being too much, I'm just enough. Right?
Yeah. Very well put. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. And talking about passion, I feel like this is a very interesting topic because I think a lot of what you do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of what you do is centered around that idea of I want to be myself or I want to be, and it's exploring what is it that you're passionate about so that you can go pursue it, so that you can go be it, so that you can, so again, this is something that I just I hear about through my conversations with people as well. But there are people that I've talked to that is like, I don't know if I have a passion. Like, I don't know if I am passionate about something, and this is why I'm still here. I'm still, like, I don't know how to figure that out, right? I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to. So, can you explain to me, I guess, or can you explain to the people that are listening what passion is and how you can find this concept of passion, whether
Yeah.
it's for personal or for business reasons or whatever?
I thank you for saying for personal or for business, because I think people get their identity intertwined with their job.
Mm. Yeah.
And this becomes a major problem because if you work a job that you are not passionate about and it does not do anything for you, however, it allows you to put a roof over your head and food on the table and maybe pursue something that you are passionate about that doesn't bring money in, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think people equate passion to that's what's going to bring in the money. No, we're not talking about money, right? We're not
Mm-hmm.
talking about this has nothing to do with consumerism or capitalism whatsoever. It has to do with you as a human being. What turns you on? What gets you excited? What makes you want to get out of bed in the morning? What puts a fire in your belly? Like, for some people, it could be crochet. I
Yeah.
love to crochet. And they like spend all their hours crocheting. And then people will be like, ooh, you should monetize that. You should go to a farmer's market and make little dolls. Or you should just crochet. Like, we have to stop thinking about making everything monetized or money. What we need to do is spend some time doing that self-discovery piece
Yeah.
so that we can connect with that passion, right? And when I think about that, like, I think about what I'm most passionate about is social justice, right? Community, connection,
Mm-hmm.
storytelling, people. I love people. I love people. I love being around people. And it's so funny because I'm married to an introvert, right? And he's just like, oh, people. But like my perfect day is being at a table at a conference and talking to thousands of people all day and
Mm.
learning who they are and what they're about. That fires me up. And then I get home full of energy, like my battery is extra, extra full. Whereas someone who's more of an introvert might be like, that sounds like my idea of literal hell.
Yeah.
Okay. I completely appreciate that, right? So then what's your passion? Is it reading? Is it storytelling? Is it writing? Is it puzzles? Is it nature? Like, what is the thing that when you're with it or in the middle of it, you have that sense of connection and awe, right? Like, I meet people I've never met and I think, oh, wow, what a cool part. Like, I get this sense of awe
Yeah.
when I'm around people.
Yeah.
Right? Some people get that sense when they're scuba diving. I love scuba diving, the fish and the coral and the cool. Like, what a neat passion.
Mm-hmm.
Some people love downhill skiing and snow. And I'm not a winter human being. You will not see me on a ski hill. I will sit next to the fire and have a nice chat with someone. I would love that. Right?
Yeah.
But it's about knowing yourself and being unapologetically yourself, and also not, as they say, not yucking someone else's yum.
Yeah.
Someone else is different. Great. I'm so excited for you. That's your jam. Have at her.
Mm.
But not like, oh, I don't like that. Like, you don't take the wind out of people's sails, right? Because you're killing people's passion.
And I think it's a very common thing that is happening, in the world. I don't know exactly why or for what reason, but it feels like a very common thing where people feel stuck in that idea of not being able to pursue their passion, pursue what they want to do or pursue what they think because of this perceived idea that I need to be, I don't know, professional, or I need to be,
Yeah.
corporate, or I need to be, a certain way in order to succeed in the world. And I think from my perspective, there are many ways, or there are many reasons to, or many ways to define success, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not tied, like you said, to just making money. It's
No,
tied to happiness, is what I think I consider it.
100%. And even then, not even, I wouldn't even say happiness, although I'm wearing the happy shirt today, but like, I'd say it's contentment,
Interesting.
because we live as human beings in a world where we're going to experience the roller coaster of being a human being. There's going to be loss, and there's going to be joy, and there's going to be like boredom, and there's going to be excitement, and all of this stuff is going to exist in your life. And if you're going through a phase where you're dealing with the downhill part of it, I don't want you to think you're a failure. You're not. This isn't failure territory. This is life,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So this is where things like understanding your passion and understanding how your passion is related to your goals can bring you out of that downhill. It's like, this is awful. This is crappy. What
Hmm.
brings me joy? How do I get back to a place of joy and excitement? And maybe it takes time. So like it goes like this, and then you're like slowly coming back up the hill. It's just not moving up as quickly, but there's going to come a point where you sort of level off, and then you can get back up to that place of extreme joy and excitement. But it has to be a focus.
Yeah.
It
There is
has to be part of the goal.
Yeah, yeah. There is something that I just kind of thought of as you were talking about. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people that think that life should operate the same way that a business does. In
Yeah.
that, when you look at a business and you look at the people in the stock market, and it's always growth at all costs. It's like
Yeah.
consistent growth. It needs to be up and better and better and better every single day, every single year, every single,
Bigger
what.
house, better car,
Exactly,
newer
exactly.
toys.
And as soon as you feel like something is not going right, and you feel like that downhill, like something didn't go right, something happened to me, I lost my job, I something, whatever, it feels like the world is ending, because all of a sudden my thought or my idea of what a good life is, which is growth at all costs, came tumbling down because now I'm
Yeah.
not growing. And
Yeah. It's funny you should say this. So I've had this conversation with people a few times because So this is going to sound a little woo. I'm putting it out there, but when my husband and I first met, he was like, so like, what do you want out of life? Like, what are you after? And I said, I have a 5-year plan. And he was like, okay. I'm a very organized human being, right? So
Yeah.
I'm very goal oriented. I need to have an idea. Now, my goal though wasn't necessarily based in my current reality, right? Like I wasn't making a lot of money. I was making almost nothing. I just graduated from art school. And like, look, if you want to talk about having a passion about something that brings in no money, talk to the artists,
Mm.
okay? Because we love what we do
Yeah.
in a way where it like hurts our soul to not do it. And it's like 5% of us can make a living at it. Something
Mhm.
like that. It's awful. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it.
and we're taught like a poverty mindset through art school. Like you'll
Yeah.
never make money at this. You're never going to make money at this, which does not help the situation. I'll tell you that right out. Right? Because you can make money at it, but you have to understand how to direct yourself to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but there's certain things like you're probably not going to make, $1 million or be a millionaire if that's your goal. I don't know why that would be your goal, but if that's your goal, doing crochet, odds are,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And so, kind of understanding how to set things up for yourself. It's the lifestyle that's the goal. What do I want? Like, where am I trying to get to? So I was living a lifestyle of poverty when I met my husband. And I said, my goal is to live on water with a decent sized property. I love the mid-century modern style. I'm like really nerdy about it. The architecture style of
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
mid-century modern. I want a home that reflects that mid-century modern, like 60s mod kind of vibe. Lots of bright colors, warm, inviting spaces, clean lines, neat, tidy, but artful, beautiful, right? And he's like looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, wouldn't it also be cool to have like a bunkie or like somewhere people can stay? I love collaborating. I want my future to hold collaboration. I want people to come together to build things, whether that be art or business or whatever, like anything. But I love that process. And so here we are, fast forward. My husband and I have now been together for 20 years. I live in that house on the water. We saw it 10 years ago. I walked in and it was like a gut job. We had to like completely redo everything in it. But I
Mhm.
walked in and that vision I had was there. I saw it. And my realtor was like, are you sure you want to buy this house? And I was like, 100%, this is my house. Without a doubt, this is the house. And even
Yeah.
my husband was looking at me like, are you sure? But they didn't spend the time visualizing what I had spent the time visualizing.
Right.
And I do it now today. I'm not looking for a mansion. I'm not looking for 100 acres with my own private beach. I'm looking for what I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways that I would alter and augment what I have right now. But ultimately, if I could not make any more money than just surviving, I've hit the goal. I'm there. And learning to
Interesting.
be content
Yeah.
for the things that you are striving for when you achieve them is a big deal. So then when I see, because I love real estate, so I'll like look stuff up and be like, ooh, nice house, right? My husband's like, would you consider moving there? Never. This is my house. I
Fun.
manifested it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. So from that idea now, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the idea or the concept of enough. Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with as well, whether it's goal setting or whether it's coming up with, I'm going to do my passion or I'm
Yep.
going to try and do work-life balance, like you said, right? This affects pretty much anything. But what is the concept of enough? There is enough here that I can feel satisfied or happy or that I am in the right direction. What are your thoughts on that?
We define enough for ourselves. And it's when
Hmm.
we look to others that we're not enough, right? When we're comparing ourselves to others, or comparing ourselves to modern trends, or comparing ourselves to what someone else is telling us we should be, which is a dirty word, folks. Should, dirty word. Dirty, dirty word.
Yeah.
There is no shoulds. You decide, you define your own happiness, you define your enoughness, you define that. And there's, I think, something to be said for ongoing personal growth and discovery, right? Because we can't all know everything. And the world around us is constantly changing and evolving. And we need to be able to change and evolve along with it. Absolutely. Right? But if enough for you is a tiny home with your family and your dog and maybe a little bit of land to be on, then that's enough for you. So don't compare yourself to the person who needs the 8-bedroom mansion with 17 bathrooms and the pool and the sauna and don't compare. You know, have a, like my mother used to say, go and have lunch with yourself. So like sit down with yourself and really like internally have that conversation. Do I need that? Do I even want that? Right? Because the yardstick is you.
And that's a very good point, because I feel like most people look at the yardsticks or look at the goals that they want to pursue, and they do it based off of what they see other people doing. If I see, a friend did this, or I saw, this guy do that, right? And
Yeah.
I want that. So that's my goal now. And not really thinking about, like you said, going back internally and thinking about what's my barometer. What do I think? What is good enough for me? Right.
I think about this a lot because so people who love motorcycles, I find them really interesting and inspiring because they've chosen something that's actually not that expensive. You can get your hands on a motorcycle for a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah.
And I think what they're doing is actually finding something that matches their temperament. So there's a certain temperament that craves freedom, and that
Interesting.
sense of freedom, like leave me alone to do what I want, how I want to do it, the way I want to do it without being micromanaged. Let me do what I want to do, how I want to do it on my own schedule. There's like a temperament where that is their driving value. They just need to not be in a box. And I feel like people who have that temperament, who have discovered motorcycles or a jet ski or something that gives them, or bike, like even bike riding, like riding a bike.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a kid and you get on that bike and you go riding out into the neighborhood all by yourself, there's this sense of freedom and
Yeah.
adventure and like not knowing what's coming that is enticing. And if you get off on that, if that works for you, then that's enough, isn't it? And you crave to get on that bike and go and ride that bike, or you crave to get on your jet ski and go out into the water and just be in the sun and enjoy the spray of the water. And like, you're fulfilling that passion, that need to feel free. And it feels really good. And it's not $2 million, right? But the internet tells you, no, you don't want a motorcycle. You want a Tesla Cybertruck. You don't want a jet ski. You want a yacht with 50 of your closest friends that has a hot tub and a pool and a butler. And do
Mm-hmm.
I? Like, look, I love a charcuterie board, but I can make that for $12. I don't need the yacht and the people and the, right? I don't need all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think that comes down to that idea that you mentioned about, it's about the journey. It's not about the goal, or it's not about, I want that yacht or I want that whatever. It's understanding what is enough for you. And it's based off of your journey. Like if I can feel that freedom, if I can feel like I'm not confined in a box by just riding my motorcycle every once in a while, then you're doing it. Like you're living your life. You
It's
are
like a life
fulfilling
hack,
your destiny, right?
right? It's like a life hack when you can, and we talk about this all the time when we're talking about lead without permission. I also run another course that's 9 weeks long called my super type A attempt at being Zen. And it's directed towards people who are high anxiety and they don't know how to relax and they're very goal oriented, but they feel unfulfilled in some way. Like they're not finding that work-life balance. They're not finding their passion. They can't find the downtime.
Right.
Right. And we talk about this a lot. Like I had one client who was talking about how just in every single imaginary scenario she brought up, she talked about coffee. And I was like, okay, I'm seeing a theme,
I feel
right?
like it's a pretty common theme.
Like you love coffee.
Yeah.
Clearly it's doing something for you.
Mm-hmm.
That coffee. So do you drink a coffee every day? And they're like, yeah. Sit in that. Like be mindful through that. Take all of that in. Slow it down.
Yeah.
It's simple. You get to do that every single day, and it's part of your ideal life. You get to do a part of your ideal life every single day. Think about that. So, like, sit in it for as long as you possibly can.
I love that. Love that
Right?
experience.
This is it. And we start to, the more we imagine these ideal lives or our ideal spaces, or, you know, in a perfect world, if I could wave a magic wand and have anything and everything I wanted, what would that look like? Right. And the more detailed we get and the more specific, the more we can be like, oh, actually, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's something as simple like I'm throwing a party in a couple weeks for a bunch of girlfriends, literally just to be like, thank you, I love you.
Oh,
That's
nice.
the party theme.
Yeah.
Okay. And my kids are going to be here. And one of them said, we should have a disco ball. And I was like, and I was like, okay, well, wait. Don't say no right away. That actually sounds like a lot of fun. And it would bring a certain atmosphere to this party. Let me see what I can do. I hop on, the place that shall not be named. And I search, like, can I get a disco ball? And like, will it light itself up? And how do I? $16. It was $16 to make his dream a reality.
Mm-hmm.
$16. Sometimes you are $16 away from making your vision of the ideal space or the ideal world a reality.
Yeah. I love
But
that.
if you haven't taken the time to figure out what that vision is, what it looks like, then you're grabbing everything you can and looking at other people. What do
Yeah.
they have that makes them happy? Maybe if I had that, I'd be happy. What do they have or what are they doing that makes them happy? Oh, they flew off to Cancun. Maybe I need to fly to Cancun. Like, is that where you want to be?
Amazing. Yeah. 100%. Like knowing yourself, knowing what you want, and then just living that journey, making that experience. I think that's a wonderful way of looking at the world.
Yeah, it's a lot more satisfying, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I believe that. And it's something that I'm trying to do myself, and it's I find it to be a lot more rewarding, if you will, or a lot more like I feel myself, instead of waiting, because I think that's a lot of people's mentality as well, that I'm going to be happy or I'm going to try and fulfill my goals when I'm retired. Let me live my life right now, like do
Ooh,
whatever I need to do, and end up when I'm retired, I'll be happy. But
it's a long wait.
that's a long time away, right? And when you get there, are you going to be in the healthy position? Are you going to be in the, are your priorities going to change? Like, you never know what's going to happen. It's about
You
living your
never
life
know.
right now, right?
And a lot of that focuses like, that sense of, am I enough? Do I have enough? Is this fulfilling me? Sit in gratitude. I know we talk about gratitude so much these days and
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness, but you do need to sit in gratitude and think about, 20 years ago, what do I have now? Or what am I doing now that 20 year ago me would be like, holy cow, really? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
You're
true.
going to find a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm being honest, 20 year ago me would be thrilled that I could go out to a nice restaurant once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Thrilled.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford that 20 years ago.
And
It,
it's the same with anything. Like I think 20-year-old me, right, would have been thrilled to have known that I can have my own business and sustain my my livelihood and the livelihood of my family just of having a business, right?
yeah,
And that is something that a lot of people try to do or have a fear of doing, but here I am doing it, right? Like it's
yeah.
such a uh, interesting thing that a lot of people don't think about, right? You don't just sit there and just be grateful or be understanding that look at what I've accomplished right
It's
now,
it's
right?
so cool. Like, I try to instill that in everyone in my house on a regular basis when I say things like, "Gosh, I love our house." I
Mm.
and I'll just say it out of nowhere. I'll be sitting in the living room and I'll be like, "I love this house." And they look at me like I'm nuts sometimes, but I'm like, "Listen, I love this space. It feels safe and comfortable and warm and artistic. It feels like me. It feels like it's for me. Gosh, can you ask for anything else?"
Yeah,
Like, do you remember living in spaces, especially as a younger person, being like, "I want to paint that wall." And they're like, "No, you can't paint."
yeah,
You know? Right? Like, I had a very forgiving mother that would literally let me paint the walls of my bedroom like any way I wanted. And I would paint like suns and moons and cartoon characters and whatever and cover it in posters and, Eddie Vedder all over the place. Shout out to my Eddie Vedder lovers out there. Uh, but, like just surround myself with the things that fill my cup and make me feel inspired and excited and loved and all of those things. And it's that search, like that self-discovery piece that needs to be done so that you can do that,
yeah,
right? How do you feel in an orange room versus how do you feel in a blue room or a green room? Like, what brings you peace? What makes you feel good? Like, do that. A campaign's $30.
yeah, 100%. I love that. So where can people find you, your programs, what you're doing? You even have a podcast, I believe, as well, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a podcast called My Super Type A Attempt at Being Zen. We talk a lot about ways to chill out and relax and find those like down quiet moments. As you can imagine, like I'm a hyper extrovert and I'm also highly organized, and one might even say too organized. And, my temperament gets really tweaked when things don't go according to plan. And so, I've spent the last decade after my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and this can be the kind of disease that comes out of nowhere, but it's very often stress induced,
Right.
right? Because we're talking about like neurology and neurosynapses, and these are deteriorated with stress.
Mm-hmm.
So when she was diagnosed, I was like, "You gotta relax." And so that's where the super type A attempt at being Zen came out of. Like, every year, my goal is to learn to relax, and I do it through a different sort of medium. Every year, I try and refocus. Like, how am I going to make it fun this year? This year, it's about connect. So, like, how do I connect with people and make that part of my relaxation and celebration and gratitude and all of that? And you can find all of these things on yorkemotivational.com, and it's Yorke with an E. So Yorke motivational.com. And there's access to my programs, and there's one-on-one coaching, and there's you can hear the My Super Type A Attempt at Being Zen podcast virtually anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find us
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And I interview fun people, like people who help you relax or people who are also super type A. And we talk about the challenges of being a super type A person who wants to learn to slow down,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And it's a challenge, especially when we talk about motherhood or parenthood or, family life versus work life
Mm-hmm.
versus everything. So there's a lot of really interesting conversations in that space.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, we'll put a link on everything, your where to find the podcast and where to find your website and stuff like that. We'll put that on the show notes as well. Is there anything that we might have missed that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I don't think so. The theme for this is remind me, June. It's sort of like, why not me? Is that right?
Yeah, it's the idea of why can't I? Why can't I just go do something or pursue passion or whatever, which I think we hit on it pretty well, the idea of how do you find it? How do you, try to understand the goal setting or the idea of enough? So yeah, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
I think the only thing that I would add to it is that, a lot of times we get stuck in a fixed mindset space as individuals. So we create obstacles and barriers to our own happiness and fulfillment. And we do that not only by comparing ourselves to other people, but also just throughout our lives, we'll hit an obstacle and we're not taught that you can actually push past it or around it. We're told like that's a limitation.
Right.
Or you can't do that. And you hear it a lot, right? People who
Yeah,
are
that's
like, I'm
true.
not good at math,
Hmm.
or it's one thing if you've come to terms with like, actually, I don't enjoy that and I don't want to be in that space or do that thing. Cool. Honor that, right? But if you're avoiding something because you're afraid of it or you don't have the confidence to do it, that's different.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
That's
And be able to
different.
distinguish that too, right? See that difference. If you don't want to do it, that's okay, right? But if it's just that fear that is not allowing you to do it, well,
Yeah.
then that's something that you can work on. That's something that you can, change, if you will.
I mean, people will tell themselves, and like, not to use a very, blunt example, people will assume if I don't have arms, I can't play piano.
Mm-hmm.
There are people out there who play piano
Oh
who do
yeah.
not have arms.
Yeah.
If they're doing it, why not you?
Mm-hmm.
Like understanding what limitations are, that most of them are actually in your mind. Most of them, not all of them. There's some things where it's like, yeah, that's a true and real limitation, and I get it.
Yeah.
But most of them are self-imposed.
Yeah. 100%. And it's something that we tell ourselves, like you said, like, I'm not good at math. So you already have that limitation that you put on yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Like, on what planet are you not good at math?
Yeah.
Like, did someone tell you that? Did you feel like you didn't get the grades that you would have in school? Like, have you looked at math in the last 20 years and tried? Because I'll tell you, I got in my own way too, just out of like, you tell yourself these stories, right? Like we rebel against things. I don't want that. I don't want that. When sometimes like thou dost protest too much.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Do you not want that, or are you afraid of that? These are different things,
Yeah. 100%.
right? And sometimes big life changes are scary. And and you may have spent the last 10, 15 years being like, not me. I'm not that. I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm about. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I think that's what I'm about. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is where that self-discovery piece comes in. Like, I really want people to get out of their own way. If it's
Yeah.
something you truly don't like and is not for you, that's okay. But if you're saying that because, my sister does that, I don't want to be doing it too. Why not? Do you love it? Like, do it. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Stop putting roadblocks in your own way. This is the number one thing I see across all of my clients in all of the spaces, corporate, one-on-one, everything. Stop getting in your own way.
Yeah. I love that. So if you want to stop getting in your own way, then visit Yorke Motivational and,
Please.
and listen to all the stuff that she does because it's fantastic. And yeah, thank you very much, Risha, for being part of the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really a delight to be in your presence.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank Thank you for listening to the entire episode. All the links and info you heard in this conversation will be featured in the show notes on our website, villagermagazine.ca/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing to our channels like YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're listening from, so you never miss an episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.